He's kind of like the Joe Rogan of the hospitality industry right now.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Are there limits to the U.S. government's debt growth? What will happen if the debts are not curtailed? What should policymakers or investors do? Those are urgent questions that legendary investor and New York Times bestselling author Ray Dalio addresses in his new book, How Countries Go Broke: The Big Cycle. The book comes out in June and is available for pre-order today, wherever books are sold.
To keep your independence, go to SendSquared.com today and sign up for the #1 hospitality CRM for you to keep your independence. From book direct campaigns to other customer and traveler management details and perks, SendSquared is the CRM for you. Now, we're back to the episode. Welcome back, Slick Talkers. This episode is featuring our amazing friend, Jennifer Barnwell at Curator Hotel Collection, where we're going to discuss the perks of having an independent brand versus a big brand like a Marriott or a Hilton in the hotel space, and the current things that they're seeing as a co-op or a collaboration of properties that don't enforce property or brand standards. They just focus on curating a good collection of properties that can deliver great hospitality while also leveraging their portfolio size as a collection to get these operators better deals. Now, there's a lot of stuff that we discuss in this episode, so I hope that you enjoy and that you take some notes. And don't forget, grab the links in the show notes to connect with Jennifer beyond the podcast. Now, let's begin. You're listening to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, a podcast for those who are in and around the hospitality industry who love, live, and breathe what they do. You can join us for candid and unscripted conversations with hospitality experts and founders as we go deeper into their personal stories while they're sharing their triumphs and trials that got them to where they are today. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and you're listening to an episode of Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast. Now, let's begin. All right, Jennifer Barnwell, welcome to the show. How are we doing today?
We're doing great. Thank you. I live and work in the DC area, and we're finally getting some warm weather. So everyone is kind of in an elevated mood compared to the cold winter days, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say for the Slick Talk listeners, we had our pre-chat at the end of last year. You were fighting a cold and definitely the cold weather in DC. And then now, after another cold, another sickness, we're finally recording. So it sounds like things are on the up and up, right? You're not sick. The weather's good in DC. Life's good. Life's got to be good.
Life is really good right now, but don't jinx me. Yeah, it's just been a kind of bad season for everybody, I think.
Yeah, especially with all the travel last year. I think I was on the road every other week with conferences and stuff. And I think plenty of other people listening were also. So it's hard. It's hard when you're on a go schedule. But Jen, I'm so excited to have you on to talk about Curator Hotels and what you guys are doing and just I think the independent landscape, right? Like you guys have such a great pulse on what's happening in the world of independent and boutiques. So before we jump into that, I would love for you to share a little bit of your background and story for the listeners.
Yeah, thank you. I would love to. So starting in college, I give my sister all the credit in the world. So I have an older brother and an older sister. And my sister was the one who somehow knew she was interested in the hotel industry and studied that in college. And I kind of just fell into it too, kind of following her along. And so I got the background in the hospitality industry in college and really gravitated to more of kind of the analytical side of things rather than, I've tried to do a whole lot of different jobs in a hotel because I think it's important to understand how hotels operate. But I knew I wasn't the one that was going to be at the property level taking care of guests. That just wasn't what I was well suited for. I was more like, the finance and the negotiating and then the whole contract and agreements of things like that. So I was very lucky right out of college to go directly to an ownership company in New York City. And they did, our sales pitch was we were vertically integrated, which was completely accurate. So as a young person, I got to work on a whole slew of different deals, everything from debt deals. So way back then, it was kind of just the start of all these huge CMBS loans on, big trophy properties. I got to work on a bunch of CMBS debt. I got to work on ground up developments. I got to work on asset management. I got to work on management. And the company I worked with even had a construction company. So I got to be completely exposed to and deal with construction budgets and actually the construction people themselves. So early on from kind of the get-go, I was in the ownership capacity in our industry, which I really loved. And, you can kind of describe it a whole lot of different ways, but it's kind of great to be kind of in the driver's seat and be able to actually be the decision maker. So I learned so much in those early years. Was at this ownership, kind of development company for quite a while, moved to another ownership group, was a smaller investment fund that was working on a few properties in New York City. And then, at the end of the day, we also say it's kind of like a small industry. I got a call, 'cause someone I had worked with previously was launching a new publicly traded hotel REIT, but it was in Washington, D.C. And, it was one of those opportunities. It was like, nothing's really keeping me in New York. This may be the next thing. I've never worked for a public company. So that's when I moved down to DC in the summer of 2010 and started working with Pebblebrook Hotel Trust. Stellar group of senior leadership, had been at other hotel REITs, really impressive backgrounds. And I was the first asset manager in the door. So I got to learn, it was fast and furious. It was like, I felt like we were buying the hotel like every other week, which was amazing. And it was a very small group, a startup. And I really got to learn everything about a public company, which is very, very intense. Lots of rules, lots of very, very specific daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly reporting. And for the first time, I got exposed to independent hotels. And I hadn't really worked on anything independent before then. It was just really with the big brands, mostly Starwood in particular, and a little bit of Marriott when Starwood existed. So part of part of it for me was this incredible opportunity to work for a public company. And then Pebblebrook in particular really valued and had an investment strategy to have a lot of independent properties too. So I just fell in love with independents and boutique hotels and everything that goes along with creating them, operating them, owning them, and all the really special team members that choose to work in the independent boutique space. It was, is and continues to be, very inspiring and very fun. Hospitality, you should have fun and value what you do and enjoy what you do. So that's a little bit about kind of where I was and where I am today.
I got two questions for you. One is, out of all the hotel jobs that you got to work in the past, what was your favorite one out of all the departments, all the jobs you got to experience earlier on in your career?
I'm trying to make sure when I answer this, it doesn't sound strange or sexist. But so when I was in college, I worked at the hotel on campus, and I did a lot of jobs, a lot of different positions, like customer facing positions in the hotel. But my senior year, I was the bell stand, and I was the only female, mostly working with groups of other guys. And it was just, it was really fun because you're like the first person, right? In almost every case, you're the first person that the guest comes into contact with, and you kind of have to know a whole lot of everything. Not just about, the cars and the parking and the valet charges and all that, but just kind of give them their first impression, know a lot about the hotel and what's happening. But it was also very, very funny because back then, so this was 96, 97, or 95, 96 probably, it was maybe strange or unusual or unexpected to have a female at the bell stand and a female, valet parking your car. So, a lot of times it was almost like, mostly males were like tipping me like just to go away. They were like, oh, no. You do not have to help me with my bags. Oh, and like, I think I was probably the most well-tipped, bell stand person or valet parker for quite a while, only because of that. I mean, it just comes to my mind because it was just like so funny and like strange. And it was like, of course I'm as capable as anyone else to carry back. I mean, I was a athlete in college. I'm like 5'9", like totally fine and strong. I can carry bags and help people with what they need. But it was maybe a new experience for lots of people showing up at the hotel to see someone, female at the front at that point in time.
See, even today, though, being raised by 5 sisters, I would have been like, no, I would have tipped you to go away. I'm like, here, just like, don't do it. I can take my own bags. Like, my sisters would kill me if I let you do this. So I get to respect that, even in today's world. But that's really funny. I think the first jobs, the early jobs are always our funniest, like kind of fun ones inside of hotels, right? Where you're just like, it wasn't anything crazy, but it was kind of odd or fun. And there was all these fun stories. So I love that. And the second question I had for you queued up was, you told us a little bit about your background, how you got into the industry. Now let's talk about Curator and how you guys aren't a soft brand. You're not a brand, but you're a collection of independents, and what the difference is between being a soft brand and being a collection like you guys are.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, I just tend to think of like all these words, like, so kind of like a word salad. But when I think about independent and boutique properties within the industry, I think of things like creativity, passion, freedom, flexibility, thoughtfulness, responsiveness, innovation, kind of like deep meaning or, meaningfulness. And I say all of that because that's truly the space, the independent boutique space, is you get to make every decision and determine the direction of everything. And that means it is, just geometrically more complicated and challenging. You kind of thrive in that, or you don't, or it, inspires you, or you don't. You can put this whole team together to handle all that stuff for you. And, I just fell on the end of the spectrum where I found that very inspiring and, really fun and interesting to work on. And by the way, there's room for everyone in our industry. Like, I would never say kind of one thing is better than the other. They're just very different. Because if you are in the brand space, brands are really about organization and consistency. And really, at the end of the day, growth. I mean, these public big brand companies need to, satisfy investors and shareholders. And I've been listening to all the earnings call, and it really is about what's next. I mean, you saw the headlines for the year-end reports. It's like, this brand had record growth this year, and that brand had record growth this year. So how are they going to do it, or how are they going to replicate it? So that necessitates, what you're seeing in the market with all its consolidation and buying other smaller brands or independents even. So on one hand, you have, I would say, rigidity, which is okay for some people, focused on a very kind of investment focused, again, rigid structure that you feel good about, you can count on, maybe your lender feels the same way. You can really count on that and feel like the brand can deliver for you. But you have almost no flexibility or say or input into what's going on in your investment. So they're very, very different things. And again, what kind of my experience and what I have seen I just really gravitate towards the independent boutique part of our industry rather than the alternative.
All right, Slick Talkers, Hostfully is a great property management platform for you to streamline and grow your operations from 0 to 50 to 100 plus. If you're looking at scaling your property management company, then you need to get on a demo with Frank. If you're already on a property management software, by the way, this isn't something you should be passing over. You should be looking at that link in the show notes. You should be clicking it, doing a demo with Frank, and then using the code HFM300 for $300 off your onboarding with Hostfully. When you take the power and control of your operations in your own hands by streamlining your tech stack into one property management platform like Hostfully, you won't regret it. So grab the link in the show notes, book a demo, use the code HFM300 to get $300 off your onboarding today. And now we are back to the episode with Jennifer Barnwell. You said a bunch of really good words that describe it or the way you think of independent boutiques. And I'm curious, do you think, because I'm seeing this shift, right? We're not even just shift in travelers, but shift in society, right? We want things more instantly, a lot faster, basically right to the second we think about it, like we should have it type of mentality. And you got Amazon Prime 2-day delivery at max if you're maybe outside of a city center, right? Like it's very instantaneous world, and short form content, TikTok, YouTube shorts, all these quick dopamine hits, right? And so you say all these words like creativity and agile and just all these different things describing an independent. And I want to ask you the question around, do you think independents are able to execute on hospitality moments faster than brands because of less red tape? Or do you think when it comes to actually executing the hospitality inside of our properties, that at the end of the day, it's still going to be difficult, whether you're independent or branded property, at the demand of what people kind of expect service or hospitality to be delivered in an instant world?
Yeah, I think there's probably a couple ways to answer that. I think, maybe we don't want to talk about COVID so much anymore, but I think there's no doubt. I mean, I saw it firsthand. I was an asset manager with Pebblebrook at that point when COVID hit and everything started to shut down. It was incredibly difficult no matter what. And, you never think in your life you're going to be closing, 60 hotels all at once, and then they're going to be closed for a long time. But in the instances where you're working with independent properties, you're working with independent operators, because all the properties Pebblebrook owns are managed by management companies. These are just smaller companies, and you have a direct line and amazing relationships with the principals and all the subject matter experts that you want to weigh in and have the discussions and make sure things are executed right. So it's an easier communication route to have these conversations kind of really quickly, get everybody on the same page, and then make sure things start happening. At the big branded level, the organizations are just so massive. So it's just a fact. It's not, me picking that on them or anything, but when they have, hundreds of thousands of rooms and, tens of thousands and tens of thousands of hotels, they have to take a little bit more time to think about how to handle certainly something as big as COVID and, the country shutting down, but also every single little thing. So even if it's, what's going to be in the mini bar, or it's what mattress can you put in this property, or what sheets can you use there? Again, it is very rigid. It's very rigid for a reason, because they have all these brand standards, brand integrity, and they have to kind of keep their organization organized. So in terms of just kind of high level, being able to react to things that are thrown your way. I mean, there's just no doubt boutiques and independents are always going to be more nimble in that case. But in terms of reacting to guest needs, wants, requests, we should I believe we should be on a level playing field. You know, it doesn't matter if you walk in the door of a Hyatt or a Marriott or Hilton, or you walk in, you know, a brand of one, you know, a little independent boutique. All of us should be reacting to the feedback from our guests and making sure that we're delivering the best experience that we can. I would hope that all of the team members at branded hotels are empowered to do that. And I've seen that. So that would kind of be the other side of, or the other answer to the other question you asked.
For sure. So I would assume, and this is just me being a little naive, kind of playing devil's advocate here. There's no branded hotels inside of the Curator collection, correct? So there's no Marriott,
There are
like
not.
Hilton,
Correct.
like Marriott Courtyards. So they're all independents. What brand
Correct.
of one, as you say? I like.
Yeah,
it.
that's correct.
Okay.
I mean, you cannot be part of a big brand if you're in Curator, because that's not the marketplace, you know, we're trying to champion and serve and preserve, if you will. So you have to be truly independent to be part of Curator.
So I love that you said marketplace. So for the listeners listening, Curator, as a hotelier, you join and you get access to certain membership perks, or can you maybe kind of dive into the back end of Curator as the B2B side?
Yes, I would love that. We initially launched at the end of 2020. Primarily, it was a B2B business. So coming from the, you know, safe confines of Pebblebrook and learning so much and being so involved in independence, but also being a very, very hands-on owner, we had done a lot of stuff within Pebblebrook for ourselves that not everybody does, not every other owner does. And frankly, even, you know, some operators don't have the time and resources to do, which were really dig into our entire portfolio. Where are we spending money? Who are the vendors we're working with? And where can we, use our muscle? Because we have leverage in this space. We own a lot of hotels. So where can we create value for ourselves where we haven't created value yet? And a lot of that was through going back to the vendors, and frankly, just cutting our own deals, which is, again, is kind of highly unusual in the ownership space to do that for yourself. And Pebblebrook did that for itself over the course of, you know, a year plus, and did a lot from the standpoint of cost savings, and streamlining, you know, working with certain vendors and getting some more efficiencies out of that. And Curator ended up being a public outgrowth of that, because we heard from vendors that wanted, you know, to continue to work with Pebblebrook or more, you know, other types of hotels. We heard from the operators of the Pebblebrook hotels, like, oh my gosh, you got all these great deals. Like, how can I get in on them too? So everything Pebblebrook did for itself was proprietary, but we thought, why can't we roll this out and create this community, you know, this co-op, this collection that any independent boutique can join? And as we continue, you know, all the Pebblebrook hotels come into Curator, the operators that we've worked in that have wonderful independent properties, they all come in. We keep growing and growing. So we truly do have, first of all, the resources to figure out who the best vendors are in this space. But we're so big, we're certainly bigger than a single owner operator, but we're bigger than a lot of the management companies' independent portfolios are. So we have this leverage to go back to vendors and get better pricing than we've ever seen before. So everything we do always comes back to kind of the ownership mentality. So we call Curator Collection. We don't call it a brand, because we are kind of this loose organization kind of on purpose, because we want these independent boutiques to be able to retain and maintain what they are today. But can we provide community, you know, all these independent boutiques talking to each other, helping each other, not in a price, price fixing way by any means, but just talk about what they're doing at their hotels, how they're operating the hotels, help each other. So we create a community. But more importantly, we've gone out and done all the work to find who we think are best in class in all these different disciplines that you need to operate a full service independent boutique hotel. So we have offerings throughout the tech stack. So the technology platforms you need to run and operate an independent hotel, property management, revenue management, central reservations, point of sale. We've got credit card processing, but then we've also found really great third-party AV partners. We found, short-term staffing companies that can help you when you're struggling with staffing. We have everything from a deal with a global purchasing organization to help you get the best pricing on all your linen and your tissues and your food. And then we've got, cashless tipping. We've got guest engagement applications. I mean, the list is really long, but again, it always comes back to from the ownership mentality. We want people to come in, see what we have to offer, hopefully help you be more profitable so you continue to stay independent, but you pick and choose what works for you. Again, going back to some of the words I said about being in the independent space, you make every decision that's whatever is best for your property, and everything's flexible. Nothing is dictated or mandated. There's no brand standards, like we've talked about earlier too. So it's meant to be a safe place where we're hopefully helping and creating value for these independent boutiques that they just don't have the time and resources and obviously the size and therefore the leverage to do for themselves. So we launched as a B2B company to offer all of these programs, again, that the properties can opt into to save money and be more profitable at the end of the day.
No, I love that. And you guys also have the B2C side, right? Where you're also kind of promoting the properties, letting guests or travelers book and then pass on that reservation to the independent themselves. You're not taking a brand royalty fee, all that other stuff. And it's funny because it's very, like, you guys' business is very similar to ours at Hospitality FM, where we're a marketplace. We serve the podcasters. We help them with, logistics and operations and consistency and all the fun things behind the scenes. But then we have like the advertising side where the advertisers come to us. We matchmake them with the proper podcaster, et cetera. So the question I have queued up for you on this, because running a marketplace like Airbnb or Curator or Hospitality FM, right? Like these are all examples of marketplaces. It's not easy. A marketplace, especially when you have two customers and you have to kind of see, what comes first, chicken or the egg, right? B2C, B2B, vice versa. It's a challenging business. So I would love to know from your perspective, what are the biggest challenges that you guys had to overcome as a marketplace type business that you wouldn't have expected in the beginning, but are super glad you learned today or have the experience in your belt today?
Yeah, I think, what I would start off with is maybe with hindsight, maybe something obvious, but we know owning and operating a hotel, independent hotel is difficult and challenging. And we also know there's a lot of different stakeholders involved. So I think one of the challenges we encounter is, we always say this, off the bat, even in our prospecting meetings, we're educating people about Curator and trying to get them to be a part of it. At the end of the day, Curator it's an active endeavor. So we have this wonderful account management team here that goes through very comprehensive onboarding process. But at the end of the day, we really need an engaged, collaborative partner on the other side. But But to get to that point, it's really incumbent upon us to make sure we are, at the forefront with what are all these opportunities? Where are the good fits for you within Curator, what we have to offer that can benefit you. So on one hand, it's getting that collaboration, that engagement. And on the other hand, it's also realizing and trying to navigate how complicated the space is and how every property in the independent boutique space is totally different than the next. So we have some properties that are enrolled, in 20 or 30 of our programs. And that's how that's what is important to them. They've signed up for a lot of things. They're saving a ton of money. And there's a couple, there's other members that they sign up for like 3 or 4 things. And it's a huge home run for them. They have a great ROI within our program, but they're like, okay, we're good. We've got these like 4 heavy hitters that we're enrolled in, and, we'll kind of talk to you now and then, but that's kind of, what all we need for now. And then, so I think for us, we're always in this state of trying to make sure we're communicating as effectively as we can about what we have to offer, because we're never satisfied. We would love our members to always getting enrolled in something new every week or every month or at least every quarter. So we feel like we're delivering something to them. And on the other side of it, of course, all of our vendor partners, we want them to get new business, to help uphold the very competitive proprietary pricing they've given us. So there's kind of a lot of pressures on all points, but we just have to continue to recognize and navigate that the independent boutique space is pretty complicated, so that we can navigate it in a way that we're always continuing to deliver value for the members.
100%. Very well said. And very true. It's too close to home for me, unfortunately, but yeah, I totally agree. I think you're 100% on the mark. And one of the recent episodes that I had a couple weeks ago, we had Josiah McKenzie on, and he talks about how the profitability of a hotel, especially on the independent side, should be the oxygen of great hospitality. And you just said that, running an independent boutique is even more complex now more than ever. I would love for you to explain, where do you see the big opportunity for profitability to play as a role of oxygen inside the independents? Do you think outside of, I think to maybe give some context, right? If I'm a hotel and I go to Curator and I get a great deal on a new PMS, a new payment software, a bunch of other things, and I'm like, yes, this is it. I'm that customer I got my big hitters. I'll talk to you maybe once a quarter if I'm interested in other things, but that's about it. Obviously, those changes will make a big difference to my profitability, to my business. But what other things are we not seeing or hearing much about?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. I mean, if you look, to stay on the cost side of things, I think it's incumbent upon, every operator, and I know they're very focused on this, to just never take your eye off labor. Labor by far is the biggest expense line item in any property. So it continues to be complicated, even post-COVID. We know, all the trends and the stories about, our industry was hit so hard that there was a complete movement away, from those employed in hotels previously to some other career. And, they've been perhaps slowly coming back, or, more than likely we've, as an industry, have to look, in different places to recruit talent and grow talent and nurture talent. So on the labor front, labor management tools can be very effective, very valuable. We have partnerships in that space. And also realizing, especially in hotels, you certainly have a lot of line level employees, meaning hourly employees, of all different age ranges. But there is, of course, you have to really know what's going on in the mind of the employees and how they want to work and when they want to work. So we do have partnerships with companies that can help you get temporary employees, help with very flexible scheduling, even be able to pay people daily or weekly. I mean, old school is like, you get paid every other week and it's always in arrears, or you get paid twice a month. And we just have to innovate in that area. And if we want to have our hotels fully staffed and, easily said, give people what they want, which in this case, again, is flexibility and payments in a way that they haven't been able to receive before. So on the cost side of things, there's a lot to focus on the labor side that is important and can definitely help your profitability. On the top line for independents and boutiques, the main thing continues to be to focus on your segmentation. So independents and boutiques are much more reliant on the OTAs. It's just a fact. We're always struggling to get more of our segmentation into the direct bucket, obviously, because then you know the guest, you own the guest per se, you can market to the guest. It's the lowest cost channel. And so on that front, that's part of what we've been trying to help our members with on our digital marketing efforts. Everything we do to date is upper funnel. It's really in the prospecting that not a lot of independent boutiques have the resources to spend money in because the return on ad spend is so much lower. All these independent boutiques are spending in digital marketing. They're starting to dip their toes in OTT, but it's all about a direct message, that singular hotel and the things that make it special, very specific to that property. So they don't have typically the money allocated to this, the prospecting bucket. So that's what we do. We are out there as a big collection. We're trying to bring awareness to all the members in our collection, heavily focused, obviously, on leisure. So we're out there prospecting for them. And at the end of the day, sending them referrals that they otherwise wouldn't have access to. And we do that in a number of ways across our marketing initiatives. But that's the other part of it. It's so hard to control your costs, to do everything you can. There's a lot of tools to do that today from a technology standpoint, but also independent hotels can kind of live and die by their segmentation.
Yeah, 100%. And one of the things we talked about, speaking of segmentation on our pre-chat, and it's talking about the consolidation side of the industry, right? Where the bigger brands are grabbing these small independents that get notably well grown, I guess you could say, right? Where they go from, like a cute 1 or 2 property portfolio to, 5, 6, 7, etc. And a good example, I would say, maybe it can be, Hyatt acquired Playa Hotels and Resorts, IHG acquired Ruby Hotels, Hyatt also acquired the Standard. So with this consolidation, I'm just thinking I want to set you up with this question appropriately. Is that I get into, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, you get into a business to have hopefully an exit, right? Like that's I think the ideal goal. We all want an exit, or you can create a lifestyle business that's very, very cash flow positive and supports the lifestyle that you want to have, and is very kind of a hands-off business. I find that a lot of owners on the hotel side are a little too numbers focused, right? They only care about occupancy, RevPAR, ADR, growth, like you were saying, kind of like, all right, let's get to this X, Y, and Z number. With consolidation, though, do you think I guess, what is your opinion on the consolidation that's happened in the last year? Marriott, Hilton, Hyatt, all have played some significant cards on the table with acquisitions, licensing deals. I would assume that is kind of a good sign, right? You're getting some entrepreneurs an exit, and maybe some owners and investors that needed, been waiting for that buyout, but also now you have less independence on the independent hotel side that can kind of represent the uniqueness well. So I'm curious just on your thoughts on the consolidation that we've seen this last year.
Yeah, I think it gets me, if I'm completely honest, it gets me down from time to time because I don't like to see it because I'm so, fiercely protective of the independents and boutiques. But set that aside, the emotional part of it is aside. It does make perfect sense. What I had said earlier, these big brand public companies, they need to have growth, number one. And then number two, it also reinforces kind of what we've always believed, that independents and boutiques are really interesting and really special. And there's a lot of people that are more interested in them than, the commodities that may be available. So, good for them for recognizing that. Kind of the way I view it is they're really going out and acquiring all these properties, because I think at the end of the day, they have a lot of kind of road warriors or, maybe legacy brand loyal people. But when they got, these million points or hundreds of thousands of points, and they really want to take kind of a spectacular vacation, family vacation, or with your partner or with your friends, and you really want it to be great and memorable, they want to stay at our properties, right? They want to stay at something interesting and unique and creative, and that they know they're going to have a good time and they're going to, have all these memories from it, not the commodities. So they've done a good job of diversifying what they have available, particularly on the loyalty side. I think you'll have a lot of redemption on the more interesting properties. The other part of it, which maybe not, I haven't seen a lot of people talk about, but it's like twofold. It's on one hand, it's, well, when are you big enough? I mean, we should do another time we should play a game, because I play with my husband every now and then. Like if we see a TV commercial, not that we watch commercials much anymore, but if you look at the list of brands at every one of the big publicly traded brands now, I'm in the industry and I don't even know some of them. And even though I know some of them, I'm not sure what's the stratification, what's the hierarchy, how do they even price them against each other? So if I don't know, I mean, how is a non-hospitality person going to know? So it's like, man, when are they going to finally be big enough and just stop it already, right? But the other part of it is, I mean, if you look at any of the big markets and the urban markets, from a branding perspective, the whole family of brands, they just control so much of the market. So, if you're in New York or, LA, maybe not so much San Francisco, because that's been, just been very little supply, but they've also always been, pretty successful with independents there, just in terms of that market. But they just control so much of the market. And if I've gone through this with Pebblebrook and other properties. If you already own a certain hotel branded by a big company in the market, and then, these radius restrictions, I've seen some articles about that. It's like they can put someone right next door to you that's pretty similar, but it just has a different name. It's just like all this cannibalization. Yep. It feels like there could be cannibalization taking place in the market for the existing owners with that brand. But then also they kind of can control pricing. So either, the three big brands or four or five, if you include more, look at all the big markets. They have so much supply there that it kind of feels like everyone else is at a disadvantage from a pricing perspective. So that bothers me too.
Yeah. I love that you said when is it big enough to be its own thing? Because I've always asked the question, coming from the hotel side originally. I was a front desk agent at an autograph collection. I didn't understand. I was like, what's an autograph collection? Aren't we just part of Marriott? And they're like, no, but we're independent. We don't have to do this and do that. But I was like, how many of our guests are going to know this? Right? Like I was confused. I was like, how many travelers, unless you're a road warrior, like you said, a corporate traveler who's on the road every week, I doubt anyone or their mother on the side of the road will understand what this brand is or who is affiliated with that, or like you said, what tier are they with this? And kind of bringing up to my next question, we saw, Hilton go through an acquisition with AutoCamp, and then eventually we saw Marriott go a licensing deal with Sonder, which is an urban operator, kind of more on the short-term rental side, very staff light model. And we kind of, on our Good Morning Hospitality show, we've discussed the not idea of shift in brands, but the way that the big brands are probably done creating soft brands for a little bit, and they're going more affiliate routes where it's like a licensing deal, again, kind of like the Autograph Collection, independent, but you're affiliated in some shape or form with some of the perks. What are your thoughts on the rise of affiliation or licensing within the brands? Do you think they've gotten too big to the point where just making another brand would be a waste of time? They can't do it well. They can't be as creative. It's very cookie cutter type situation. So licensing is low hanging fruit, gives them the first kind of opportunity for acquisition, if that may, need to play out, type situation. I don't know. We just kind of found it really interesting that the licensing and the affiliate deals are now becoming more of a rise. And I would love to know your kind of perspective on how this plays out. Does this really become more of a thing, or do we go back into acquisitions and soft brands and all the fun stuff?
Yeah, I mean, the way I understand it, it's kind of, maybe in two different silos. So on one hand, I just personally think, because I've been through one of these many years ago, maybe we'll leave it unnamed, but if a big brand buys your brand, you're done. I mean, I just feel like there may be all this talk in the short term about, we're going to maintain what it is and people have jobs for a little while, but ultimately, and I'm not saying this is a bad thing. I mean, it becomes part of the big machine, and it's not what it used to be. And that's okay, because there was an exit, like that brand owner may have been hoping for all the time, and they were always working themselves up to that point. So they got what they wanted out of it. And the big brand gets what they want out of it, like instantly a new brand that's, ready to go and poised for growth, like already in existence and then poised for growth. But it's never what it used to be when it was independent. And it's a function of many things, including the people usually don't jive with the big brand people. And, everybody doesn't move over. People get phased out over years, and kind of the soul, I will say, of what made it special, it just goes away. I mean, it's just a fact. So I think in that case where there's an acquisition and it gets brought inside one of these big brand companies, I think there's no return, and it becomes like all the other brands, for example. I think the other kind of silo or, structure, whatever, is, what I would title these affiliations, where they're not selling their company. They're in a situation where they're just having their inventory appear on the big brand site. And they view it as, it's a heck of a distribution channel, right? So add it to your list of distribution channels. Hopefully there's not a huge price tag to it with the brand. But if you're on the brand site and they bring you a bunch of bookings, good for you. Obviously they have to work through the loyalty piece too, because it can get and be very expensive. But I do find that very interesting, and probably a positive thing for some of these, independent boutiques or alternate accommodations, because the big brands are hungry for that, to have more types of accommodations for their loyal guests and their redemptions. And these companies they're not giving up control, right? They're not selling yet, but they're getting a lot more bookings and a lot more awareness, and amplifying their brand and their offerings. So I do think that, I would kind of deem that as a why not try it. Hopefully you're not locked in forever. And again, the costs aren't astronomical, but I find that pretty interesting in a positive way.
Yeah, the brands have gotten so big to the point where they're becoming the OTA, which now is going to create a whole new life cycle, in my opinion. That's going to be repetitive. But one of the few questions I wanted to ask or kind of end on with you is kind of where do you see the most opportunity right now? And whether it's a marketplace wise or if it's more operationally with independents. I think you guys get to see multiple sides of the coin. So would love to know next biggest opportunity that you think is maybe untapped or undiscussed.
Yeah, I think there's always outliers, but I think that anywhere, if you're not already independent or boutique in a, urban major market, I think introducing yourselves into one of those is going to be real tough now, especially when we're talking about the brands just having so much supply in every big market and so much control in various ways. But there's always room for innovation. I think for independents and boutiques, there's certainly a space in all these alternate accommodations. There's certainly a lot of space and room for, we used to say like secondary and tertiary markets, but more like resort areas for sure. Independents can do so well as resorts. And in, maybe I'll deem it like discoverable areas. So, the places that are going to be a really amazing experience. And there's maybe a lot to explore, in the outdoors and the geography, but it's maybe not what you think of. It's not like the 10 top or 10, 20 markets. So I don't know if it's places in Arizona and New Mexico and Utah and, even parts of Oregon, even, parts, outside of the urban centers, I would say, is where you're going to see more creativity and more that's where the opportunity is because it's not really in the urban downtown markets anymore. Yeah,
it's pushing geographically more and more outwards, it seems like, after COVID, which is great. I think it gives a great opportunity for operators in multiple sectors, right, to get that exposure, to get that growth, to get that cherry on top of their cake, right, where it's maybe busier, more profitable for them. But no, it's really good perspective. And one of my favorite questions to ask is no surprise, but for the listeners who want to connect with you, Jennifer, beyond the show and want to talk to you more about either what you guys are doing at Curator or just more of what you see in the industry, where's the number one place you would like us to send the amazing Slick Talkers so they're going to reach out and overfill your
I would
inbox?
say, please reach out to me if you want. We are very active on LinkedIn. You can reach out to me through LinkedIn, which I would love. And if you want to learn more about our collection, our properties specifically, about the experiences you can have at our properties. And also we just launched a month or so ago a new kind of section of our website that's a travel blog. So that's curatorhotelsandresorts.com.
I love it. Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for taking the time to sit with me today and chat about your story and Curator and industry insights. I love the independent boutique side as I'm hopefully gearing up to become an independent owner myself in the near future, but it's always great to get to chat with you. And I love everything you guys are doing. So thanks for joining me on the show today.
Thank you so much. This is so much fun.
Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to our show partners for making Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast, possible. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we would love to connect with you outside of the podcast. So you can follow us on all of our social media channels for daily hospitality content, or find us on slicktalkthepodcast.com. And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'm your host, Will Slickers, and we will see you guys all again next week.